What was the match that ruined modern day wrestling? We're going to talk about that. I'm Rob, the Wrestling Old Head, and you have entered the portal of pro wrestling, all the time. Make sure you hit a thumbs up on the way out. Hit that notifications bell for more. We're here to talk about, it's kind of a clickbait title, I'm going to be honest with you, because I don't believe that it ruined modern wrestling, but it definitely, if you go back and watch the match, it definitely set the tone for the way modern wrestling is presented currently in its current form, how it's presented. And I'm talking about Low Ki against Amazing Red. Low Ki, I thought would have been in AEW by now. But he has had a lot of, backstage issues with a lot of performers, a lot of professional wrestlers. He's got kind of a checkered past. His attitude is questionable, to say the least, but he's always knocked it out of the park in my eyes. And the Amazing Red is a visionary. He was one of the first in the independent scene to kind of do a lot of the high-flying acrobatic moves that you see guys like Will Ospreay and Ricochet and a lot of those guys doing. He was doing it at that time, revolutionizing independent wrestling in the early aughts. Now, at a time when Kate Vick and Kiss My Ass Club and just like all kinds of weird stuff was going on in the WWE because they had bought WCW. A lot of the and ECW was folding. There was a lot of concern of where the alternatives were going to go. Where are all the fans, the ECW fans, the WCW fans, where are they going to turn to? Because WWE was basically turning those beloved companies into shit. They were molding WCW and ECW, and some of the guys that could have been there to really make WCW and ECW more formidable were nowhere to be found. So the independents had an array of talent out there at their arsenal. One of the companies, Ring of Honor, had started up, and they promised a different form of professional wrestling. Fans were starved for new championship wrestling that catered to fans of the different styles and focused more on wrestling. And at that time, people were starved for it because WWE was doing 3 to 8 minute matches. They were running people in and out. They did have some professional wrestlers that were favored. They loved the sport. There was the SmackDown 6 at that time: Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio Jr., Edge, and Kurt Angle, and Eddie Guerrero, right? And then Chavo was around. They had some ancillary players as well. So there was some great wrestling going on SmackDown, albeit in small doses. With Ring of Honor, from bell to bell, you basically kind of got the similar ECW format, and there was a lot of good to great wrestling going on. They had guys like Bryan Danielson, guys like Christopher Daniels, guys like AJ Styles, guys like Samoa Joe, that at the time they weren't well known. AJ Styles from NWA Wildside, he had formed a tag team with Air Paris, and they were in WCW for a cup of coffee before WCW was folding. Christopher Daniels had a brief stint in ECW, but other than that, most of those guys, and Bryan Danielson had come from TWA, which was Shawn Michaels' promotion out in Texas. He was trained by Shawn Michaels. A lot of other guys like Brian Kendrick, Shooter Schultz, they had come from that development. So Bryan Danielson was pretty much an unknown guy at the time. I mean, he harkened back to like the Steven Regals and the Bob Backlunds of the world. He kind of had that style of wrestling, but for the most part unknown. And they were putting on stellar shows. One match, Low Ki against Amazing Red. They went on a world tour, and I think I'll do another video about matches that kind of went on the tour. Like you saw them in every promotion, right? They went on a world tour with this match. It was Low Ki against Amazing Red. And we're going to take a look at this clip. And you tell me if this clip is familiar at all. Does this seem familiar to you at all? Because this is just a small clip, and it's Low Ki against Amazing Red from one of Ring of Honor's shows back. I think it was called Road to the Title. It was a tournament, one-night tournament going on, and this was one of the opening segments. So check this out, and then we're going to talk about it. So that was the opening sequence of Low-Ki against Amazing Red. And I remember watching that and being blown away. I was downloading matches at a fast clip back in the day. I mean, I had come from tape trading, and then now I had slid into high-speed internet, and I was going yard. Okay, I was going ham. I was downloading matches from anything that I could find. Jersey All Pro Wrestling. I was in the West Coast, so I was downloading a lot of East Coast stuff because as an ECW fan, I wanted to see what was going on in the East Coast in the wake of ECW closing down and merging with the WWE, with WCW. So I was trying to grab all of the new stuff. I wanted to be in on it. The Hit Squad. I wanted to see all of that stuff, man. And Low-Ki and Amazing Red was just blowing me away. And then NWA TNA was starting up not soon after that, and they had a match. It was AJ Styles, it was Low-Ki, and it was Jerry Lynn. And I remember showing a friend of mine that match. We had bought the pay-per-view because it was $9.99 because they were doing weekly pay-per-views back then. And that was the main event. And I remember watching that with a friend, and my friend wasn't much of a wrestling fan at all, but he watched that match and he was blown away by what he was seeing in that ring, and he became a fan. He really became a fan of Low-Ki, really became a fan of AJ Styles because of their athleticism. And Jerry Lynn, obviously ECW veteran, I mean, a fan favorite. They tore the house down in NWA TNA, and they were doing this all over the place, mostly in the East Coast, but they were in the Southeast and the Midwest. So I showed you that clip, and I talked specifically about, did this match ruin modern wrestling? Because at that time, that match and like Jerry Lynn and AJ Styles and Low-Ki from NWA TNA, they were one match on a card of many. Now, you saw some different types of high flying, but the types of athleticism that they were doing, it was a special attraction. And lately, now about 22 years later, it seems to be like 5 or 6 matches on the card that have a similar format and play out the same. So I'm asking, as a contrarian opinion, to a lot of what the fans love in AEW and a lot of what the fans love on the independent circuit, is it oversaturated? Are we seeing too much of it, right? And so I say that because 22 years ago, storylines like Katie Vick and Right to Censor and all of these other, storylines that weren't really like, what we wanted in professional wrestling at the time. No offense to RTC or anything, but it just seemed like it was, in the WWE, they were focused more on like caricatures and cartoon characters, and they were kind of going back to like the mid 90s again. And we were starved for a different type of professional wrestling. And so then when you start to see like matches like Jerry Lynn and AJ Styles, and then you see matches like Low-Ki and Amazing Red, they're tearing the house down because there's different styles, right? Like AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn are wrestling a different match than Low-Ki and Amazing Red, but they're both like top of the card, stealing the show type matches. Now that's pretty much every match. Every match, especially like if you look at like AEW, for instance, every match has that similar format. It's a bunch of moves, and then we have a standoff as the crowd claps, or there's a bunch of moves, and then we're trading chops, or we're trading forearms. We're doing springboards off the ropes, and we're landing in the ring like a squirrel. It's like there's a lot of that. And hey, look, I have a large variety of wrestling that I love. Okay, so I want to clarify this because I'm not shitting on the type of wrestling here, but I think it's a good conversation, and I hope that I can have a conversation with you guys about this, because I believe that for every match that is like a WWE style match, and they definitely still use their style of match, but they incorporate different styles as well. There's this new style that's not new. Low-Ki and Amazing Red were doing it, and it seems like it's everywhere. And I'm just wondering if it's being oversaturated, if it's being overused, and that maybe they need to come up with some different styles. Because if you look at guys like Daniel Garcia or Wheeler Yuta, people are saying they're green and everything like that, but at least they're trying something different. They're trying to do the holds. They're like Zack Sabre Jr. They're trying to do that kind of like old school wrestling with a new school twist. They're kind of like a hybrid, right? And you know, to keep those matches, those big high flying matches like the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers and Will Ospreay and Ricochet, if you want to keep those matches special, they need to feel special. They don't need to feel like this is the third or fourth time I've seen this on the show, in my opinion, and because they stand out more and it becomes more memorable, right? And I think that's the overall kind of theme here, is like when Low-Ki and Amazing Red got in the ring, it was memorable because nobody had seen that shit before. And then when you put Amazing Red with the Spanish announce team and they wrestled guys like Chris Divine and Quiet Storm and Brian XL or Rick Blade, or, you know, some of these names from the independents back at that time, it was special and the crowd was fucking eating it up. And then you saw, you know, then you had your technical match, and then you had your hardcore match, and then you had, you know what I mean? There was just, it was a little bit of everything, and it left the fans satisfied. You can tell because the crowds were going crazy for different and reacting for different things, because they got an assortment of different type of wrestling. They just didn't get one show where it was the same shit over and over again, which is why I think AEW is successful in small doses here, because of that very reason. AEW presents a product where you do get a little bit of everything, except for a lot of stories, right? Like their story mode is hurting right now, although they are trying to piece together stories. They're trying really, really hard to give you a reason to care about the performers in the ring, which I like, and I'm applauding them for that, and I hope they continue in that direction, because that is overall what you need in professional wrestling. You need, for the WWE, for doing episodic cinematic storylines on their side, and they're definitely going in on it. They're going full clip in that direction. Then AEW has an opportunity to give us an assortment of different types of wrestling styles and formats and storylines that separate them. And I do mean separate them from the WWE. You can do storylines and it be different from what types of storylines you see in the WWE. It is possible. There's a wide open field for it. It's true. It's true. It's damn true. So in that regard, I just wonder if you go back and you watch Low-Ki and Amazing Red, and if it's not Patient Zero, and if ever since that match has happened, we've gotten more cases of these types of matches, and it's become less and less special. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What was the match for you that ruined modern wrestling or made modern wrestling better? Because that same argument that I just said for ruining modern day wrestling, you could even say made it better, because it forced people to be more, acrobatic, athletic, to go at a higher pace, a faster pace, because there was a lot, there was a lot of rest holds back at that time. Those guys did not do rest holds. They went full throttle for 12, 15 minutes and gave everybody a show. So was it best for modern day wrestling, or was it worse for modern day wrestling? I can't wait to see what happens in the comments. You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out. You guys hit the notifications bell to stay up to date on all of the latest news from the Pro Wrestling Portal. All wrestling, all the time. Wrestling fans, you try and stay united. And I'll see you real soon.